Objection is heard.
Mr. President.
Senator from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to commend my colleague for his attention to this issue. Autism is a very difficult issue for many families, and the incidence of autism in our country is growing. I'm thankful that Congress, in its wisdom a number of years ago, has established agencies such as the Center for Disease Control, the National Institute of Health, where we have scientists, physicians, and many others who are dedicating their lives to researching not just autism, but cures for many, many diseases. I appreciate, again, my colleague for bringing this up, but I'm afraid this is another example of political good intentions with many, many unintended consequences. The lobby to support autism is definitely very strong, and we appreciate that. But there are many, many diseases that children and people throughout our country face. And we have put experts in place to determine where we can spend the money that we allocate for medical research. And we need to leave that to experts. We've seen when our government tries to pick winners and losers. We tried to do it in the solar business a year or so ago. There are many companies in the solar business, but we picked one. We didn't exactly know what we were doing, and we gave $500 million to an effort that was not the best place to send taxpayer money. Autism research will continue, and I think that's something we need to make very clear. The people that we've put in charge of doing medical research will continue to do that medical research. The Congress does not have to decide how much we're going to spend on all the different diseases that affect Americans. There are many children facing a disease that we don't understand, and they don't have the lobby that many other diseases have. And we cannot, from a political perspective, and in an attempt to demonstrate our compassion, try to direct all the scientific and medical research from the floor of the Congress. So all of us who object support autism research. We'll continue to try to make sure the funding for medical research is there. But it makes absolutely no sense for us, from where we sit, to try to play scientist and physician and to know where the best outcomes will be and where we get the most money. If we're going to do that, we might as well decide what kind of medical equipment's going to be used, what kind of drugs are going to be used. We certainly don't have that capability. I'm very thankful that Dr. Coburn has taken this issue for years to try to leave the decisions of medical research in the hands of those who really understand it. Our job as a Congress is to continue to appropriate the money, which we will, for medical research. Autism research will continue, as well as research for many other diseases. And hopefully we can make sure that that funding is there, because many families are suffering, and we need to make sure we do our part in the research area. So I want to welcome my colleagues in the majority to bring this bill to the floor for debate. We're certainly not blocking debate on this issue, but passing something like this without any debate and without any open vote is not what Congress should be doing right now. So thank you, Mr. President, and I yield.
Senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, thank you for the recognition, and I would recognize the good work my colleague, the senator from New Jersey, has done on this issue. I've been in the Senate a little over 6 years and was cajoled into allowing this to pass the last time it passed. I have blocked every other disease-specific piece of legislation, and there's a reason for that. Both the last director of the NIH and the current one caution against us being specific in what we demand them to do, and there's a reason for that. Our science is changing enormously. We are now at the molecular level, we're at the genetic level, we're at the immune level of thousands of diseases. What we research in diabetes now has prevalence for neurosciences. What we research in neurosciences now has prevalence for tons of other diseases. And what Dr. Zerhouni told us, he said, please don't do this. I'm known in this body to be a stickler on spending. but if there were two areas that I would increase spending in our budget, it would be to the NIH and to the National Science Foundation, both of them. And I recently reported out a report that was somewhat critical of some of the spending on the National Science Foundation. We can do everything better. But the important aspect is that no one who is opposing the reauthorization of this bill right now is opposed to autism research or the ideas behind it. What we are opposed to is tying the hands of the researchers and the directors at NIH and telling them what they should do and how they should do it. I would also dispute the fact that the money won't go away. The CR that we're going to consider this week will continue this funding as the level of what it is until November 18th, which gives us plenty of time to work with Senator Menendez to work out some of our problems with this piece of legislation. So we come to this debate in good faith. We recognize the emotional ties that are associated with such a devastating disease. As an obstetrician and pediatrician, I've diagnosed it, I've treated it, I've sat with the families as they've suffered through the consequences of this disease. I don't take it lightly. But I also don't take lightly our inability to make the clear choices and ratchet around the monies for the NIH. What we should do is say, NIH, here's your money. Go where the science helps the most people in the quickest way and the science leads us. And at a time when our country is desperate to get our fiscal house in order, what we want is the most efficient NIH. What we want is non-duplicative grants at the NIH. What we want is no fraud in the grants associated with autism, which have been published and people are in jail for. We want that eliminated. So we want the oversight on the NIH to be across the board in every area. Are you doing what we're asking you to do to spend the money wisely and what the science would tell you to do, not what any one particular interest group would tell us to do. So I would ask that a unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S-1094, the Combating Autism Reauthorization Act, and that my amendment at the desk related to requiring the Secretary of HHS to identify and consolidate duplicative overlapping autism funding through the federal government be agreed to, the bill as amended be read a third time and passed, and the motions to reconsider be laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, and any statements related to the bill be printed in the record.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President, I understand that. My commitment is to work with a senator from New Jersey to try to solve this problem before any funding would change, and I don't think it's going to change. I would also note to my colleagues that last year we had over $450 billion appropriated by the appropriators that was not authorized for anything. There was no authorizations at all. So this money isn't going to go away. There's no hurry. There's no tragedy. We can continue and we can work as colleagues to try to solve our problems as well as meet the demands that the senator from New Jersey thinks must be met. And with that, I yield the floor.
Senator.